This is Asian Life in America, the experience and impact of Asian Americans as recorded by the news media. The focus here is on Hong Kong, China, and Macau. Asian Life in America is the newest collection in Readex's Life in America program. We began by publishing Black Life in America, followed with Hispanic Life in America, and now Asian Life in America, and there are future Life in America products that are coming. The first question we ask is, who are Asian Americans? It's necessary to define Asian Americans for product definition. It's highly inclusive, this collection. There are peoples of East Asian, Southeast Asian, and South Asian ancestry. It also includes people of Afghan heritage. As you can see in this pie chart, most of the groups are Chinese, Indian, Filipino, Vietnamese, Korean, and Japanese, but many others as well. There are Hmong people, Sri Lankan, Indonesian, Burmese. Where do Asian Americans live? Across the United States. It used to be primarily on the West Coast in New York. Now you find Asian Americans in Florida and Virginia, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota. The essential fact is that Asian American history, Asian American studies, is American studies and American history. The series is divided into three, or the product is divided into three series. The first to 1941. The second series, which is the largest one, is 1942 to 2017. And the third series is 2018 to today. Essentially, it's the history of Asian Americans in a single place. It's a great research collection and also designed for curriculum and learning purposes. So suggested searches enable students and researchers to easily explore the story from many angles and many events. A very useful slide shows the scope of Asian American studies, which includes analyses and of cuisine, class, commodification, race, Orientalism, labor, law, exclusion, sexuality. There are many results on any of these searches in this collection. So it's a perfect collection for research and for teaching. Again, the product is the experience and impact of Asian Americans as recorded by the news media. And this is an image from the New York Post, October 17th, 1962. The great physicist who served on the Manhattan Project. And as you can see from this slide, you can focus on any number of subjects: sports and athletes, labor and activism, the news media, or any number of groups, and create interesting courses or narratives or research patterns, depending upon what your interests are. A very good feature is historical reflections. So on the 80th anniversary of Japanese internment in World War II, there was a lot of media attention on this. There are reflections on Asian Americans and African Americans. There are reflections on the myth of the model minority, and so on. This is the suggested search page, which offers entry into each of these topics. And you can use it as a guide for teaching or for your own research, or you can create your own searches. You're not locked into it. Here's a suggested search on Anna May Wong, the American actress who was born in Los Angeles. And you see her film career from 1922 to 1941, but you could search Anna May Wong past 1941 very easily. Also, you see in this period from 1922 to 41, other examples of artists working in the United States. So James Wong Howe, the great Chinese American cinematographer, is here. Some of the examples in the presentation to follow include The Chinese during the exclusion era, Chinatown, which is a fascinating subject, Asian Americans in the US courts, and various topics in international history. Also, a little feature on Macau and Asian Americans in film and television. So now we're looking at the Chinese exclusion period, which is basically the latter part of the 19th century into the 1920s. Just searching that term, you see results here across the database. In selected searches under immigration and citizenship, you see very specific results. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the Geary Act, the Naturalization Act, the Scott Act, which prevented Chinese residents from returning to the US from abroad. Again, Chinese exclusion within the date range 1880 and 1917 gives actually 37,000 results. It's actually fascinating. It's a very rich subject. And as we go deeper into it, we're looking at labor history and reactions to Chinese immigration. By the 1870s, there's a lot of vigilante anti-Chinese violence, which is common across the West and actually in many parts of the United States. Coolie labor is an interesting search result. And here, the Chinese and the Central Pacific Railroad in the exclusion era gives very interesting results. The Chinese built the railroads, or they helped build them. And coming up is an interesting slide. I call this proof of concept. It's Chinese labor in the exclusion era. And it's from a journal, Historical Archaeology. And you see that since the 1960s, archaeologists have studied the work camps of Chinese immigrants and Chinese American laborers who built the railroads of the American West. Or you can look at specific people. Some of these are very famous names in Chinese American history. Wang Qingfu was a major figure in Chinese American civil rights and an advocate for Chinese voices in the late 19th century. So searching this person, you get results. Here he is, the eloquent Chinese orator. And of course, we have to mention Chinese cooking because despite the hostilities to Chinese immigration, Americans were fascinated with Chinese cuisine. Second only to the French or the Chinese when it comes to culinary skill, and with simple materials, they will contrive to put together a meal which would shame the ordinary American cook. This is from the Christian Science Monitor in 2023. As I mentioned, Chinatown, very rich results. And Chinatown and Tongs, interesting search with interesting results. Tongs were gangs. They rivaled each other and there were fights over territory. War opens in Coast Tongs. These are all results in the product. An historian at San Francisco State has published a recent book from Stanford on performing Chinatown, and he's looking at Chinatown as a tourist destination. This is around the time of The Good Earth, which was an MGM film and also a very popular book. It won a Pulitzer Prize and a Nobel Prize for the author Pearl Buck. And he's looking at different examples. Here's Meiwa and results in the database for basketball. Or Joss House in Chinatown in New York in 1911. So some examples from that are international beyond the United States. We have Hong Kong, the Opium Wars, a very big subject. And then Chinese political figures. This figure, Li Hongchang, met with U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant. May 4th movement. Again, you can do a course here around this narrative. World War II, searching Japanese land on the island of Java. Or Hong Kong after Pearl Harbor. These are all images from the product. This is December 8th, 1941. Hong Kong after World War II, searching various colonial governors. And Macau. This is Macau in the late 18th century references. You see terrible Holocaust of coolies. And what's interesting is if you search Macau, MACAO, as opposed to AU, you get different results. You get more from AO. This is from 1803, Portuguese Macau. It's a very rich collection. A famous and important event in the history of Macau, 1849, assassination of the governor of Macau. Or in 1966, demonstration against colonial rule. This is the press. This is what the press offers. And in the 21st century, the Macau economic boom. Macau opens 12th casino. Tourists in Macau. Personalities in the arts and business. There are many, just a few to highlight. Very important billionaire. The founder of DoorDash. And Chinese, Hong Kong, American personalities, chefs, fashion designers, they're filmmakers. Asian Americans in the courts is a very important subject here. Brown v. Board, one of the most famous cases in U.S. Supreme Court history. The roots of this case are actually in South Carolina, but also in California, which was segregated. And you get Wong Kim Ark, birthright citizenship in the U.S. And it's not just Supreme Court decisions, it's also the appellate courts. Korematsu versus U.S., famous case. So if you search Wong Kim Ark, you get contemporary reporting on the subject. It's a landmark case. And finally, Asian Americans in film and television. Our friend Anna May Wong, who was denied roles because of her ethnicity, even roles in important films about China. So The Good Earth, which was a very big film, MGM in the late 1930s, it won an Oscar for this actress who was European. But they provided makeup to her. Jack Dawn, who's mentioned here, did makeup on The Wizard of Oz. It was not acceptable to have a Chinese American actress in the lead role. Same with Katharine Hepburn appearing in Yellowface and Dragon Seed, also a Pearl Buck novel. But behind the camera, James Wong Howe won 2 Oscars and had a successful career in Hollywood. And finally, this is the triumph of Asian Americans in Hollywood. Very recently, a Chinese American actress winning a Golden Globe Award. Anna May Wong has a Barbie doll to honor her. So in conclusion, 3 series, very large collection. Thank you.